This is your bunker core concept video. I'm going to cover all of the knowledge that you need to have, the preference-based knowledge in terms of width and stance and where you should aim, and then the fundamental concepts that really govern whether you'll be successful in getting your ball from this surface onto that surface in one shot or any number of shots. And then from that core concept, we can start to evolve. We can start to make small modifications to give you an ability to hit it maybe a little bit higher or with a little bit more run or a little lower or with a bit more spin. So let me cover the basics first, the fundamentals first, that, like I said, they're largely preference-based. You'll hear differences of opinion out there, but I'm gonna give you some solid foundation to stand on to choose to, I guess, use those preferences that I would describe as it relates to the things that absolutely must happen out of a greenside bunker shot. So we're going to work this in a reverse order. We're going to talk about the most essential elements to really good greenside bunker play. The first most essential element is that you touch the sand. Your club lands into the sand within a window of distance behind the golf ball. That window begins an inch behind the golf ball in most sand conditions and ends 3 inches behind the golf ball. If you enter the sand more than 3 inches behind a golf ball, the amount of speed your club head needs to be moving with is exponentially greater than if you land your club in this fairly broad 1 to 3 inch window. That's step one. Then there's a necessary depth that the swing must travel beneath the surface of the sand to ensure that this club is sliding underneath the golf ball. As that happens, the club and the ball actually come into some sort of interaction. We'll call that contact, and that ball is launched up into the air rather than barreling into the lip. So there's a landing point to the arc, there's a depth to the arc, and then there's a speed to the swing that's absolutely mandatory. Now, this may hit home when I say the number one mistake that I see amateur players make is a mistake in where their club hits the sand. So that's a landing point error. The second fundamental mistake I see recreational players make is a fundamental mistake in not swinging with enough speed. If you don't swing with enough speed, it means your landing point window, the width of that window, moves from 1 to 3 inches to the right or behind the golf ball to about 1 centimeter behind the golf ball, and it's not very wide at all. Let me give you an example of that. Here's me swinging with the proper technique, the proper stance, but really slow. Okay, I can see because I drew these lines in the sand that I landed on the exact 1 inch mark right behind the golf ball. But because I was swinging so, it doesn't matter that I had the right technique. The ball only traveled maybe 3 yards into the air onto the lip, and now I'm left with the same shot again. Whereas, if I do the opposite, right? I just demonstrated too little speed with really precise technique. I'm gonna actually make this version imprecise technique with enough speed to give myself the forgiveness. So I'm gonna try and enter back here at my furthest away from the golf ball in my optimal area. So a 3 inch mark with a lot of speed. Here we go. And since I've done that, yep, I'm actually more than 3 inches back behind the back edge of the ball. I'm probably closer to 3.5. Yet because I had enough speed and I had enough depth to my divot, the ball pops out and I've got a putt of around 16, 17 feet. A result most of us could get by with, right? So if we're summarizing these core concepts right now, there's a need to be precise with where we're landing the club. We're going to talk about how to achieve that. And there's also a need for us to encourage ourselves to make longer and faster swings than we otherwise may be if bunker play is a real struggle for you. Remembering this is bunker core concept. This is like a 101 level bunker play. Now, before we get back into hitting shots really quickly, you probably noticed I didn't dig my feet in. That's a preference. I don't mind digging feet in because the level that your feet go down roughly generates an arc that's down at that level, right? So we already described I need the arc getting down into the ground. So we're going to build a fort for our feet that's 1 to 2 inches down to the sand, depending on what the sand allows, because that encourages that arc to get beneath the ball. So that's why building a fort for your feet, actually hunkering down much more than it is ever a means to establish stability, is something that you should do. Let's now talk about position, our ball position. Where we position our ball is heavily dependent upon where we position our mass. If I position my mass more on my right side, I'm gonna hit the sand more on my right side. If I position my mass more on my left side, I'm gonna hit the sand generally more on my left side. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to stand 60-40. How to find that? Well, you find 50-50 and adjust ever so slightly. The more you adjust, the easier it is to bring your trail foot up off the ground. I want you to feel where 50-50 is and try and find that 60-40, and then the ball goes where that 50-50 mass would have been. So here's 50-50 mass, boom. There's 60-40, and then there's the ball's location in line with where that 50-50 mass distribution would have been. That gives me a great chance to ensure that I'm never hitting the sand early. If anything, I'm hitting the sand later, because it's easier to adjust to hitting the sand later than it ever is adjusting to hitting the sand earlier. What this would look like, if we're just talking about like really general, what it would look like is the ball is in the dead center of my stance, right? Foot position, but relative to my sternum, it's a little bit to the right of where my upper body is sitting. So we've got core concept for fort for feet, ball middle. I'm pretty square to my target line. I like to feel like my swing is traveling just a little bit left of my body, never to the right of my body. So I think that the more times I see people aiming left, the more they want to swing to the right, because the target, the flag, is further right than their actual body is aiming. And so the body alignment sometimes builds in the arrow, which is a bad swing direction out to the right. I'd much rather set square, parallel to target line, and then feel my swing cut across at an angle of maybe 15 to possibly even 30 degrees. Now, let's get to the swing mechanics piece. And the mechanics piece is the thing that allows us to land the club in the proper spot with the proper swing speed. So here we go. I've got some amount of loft on my club face. I will hit bunker shots anywhere from maybe, if this is 12 o'clock, I've turned the face at about 2 o'clock. So that's a 60-degree angle to my target line. But really the face is just lofted up to the sky now. It's not aiming to the right? The loft of the club facing up to the sky. It's almost facing back at me. So that would be one step out of a core concept kind of bunker skill. But I would hit shots from square. I'd hit them all the way to possibly even 80 degrees of shaft rotated so the face is even further to the sky if I wanted to come out really high and soft. Then, in the backswing, there's an amount of handle swing, body rotation, but there's a lot of shaft moving to shoulder. Then on the downswing, there's a lot of body acceleration, handle acceleration, and a very late release, all the way to a full finish. Yes, you'll see pros, yes, you'll see elite amateurs not create quite full range of motion or quite full finish, but those are more specialty shots. We're just talking about core concept bunker play. If I can encourage you to swing full into the follow through, then I'm also possibly pulling out the qualities in the swing that I just described for landing it correctly, or that would land it correctly, and also generate a high degree of swing speed. So again, live fire here. We got face, we got fort for feet. I've got an amount of backswing with a lot of hinge. I'm going to hold that angle, feeling like I'm moving the handle of the club way on through. I really high finish with my handle, and here's how it works in live fire. Just like so. And we get a nice high, soft bunker shot that pitches at the flag and rolls out to, I don't know, 4 or 5 feet back there. Okay, so let's summarize real quick. What the golf ball needs is a set of instructions. They're going to come through an accurate landing of our club in a 1 to 3 inch window at a depth that's built based on us knowing we need to get the club into the sand, but also building the likelihood of that in by getting lower with our feet into the sand. And then having a backswing that's part body, part arms, but a lot of wrists, and then trying to lead the handle into impact and send the handle really high up over your lead shoulder. Hitting with speed is advantageous. It's advantageous because it gives us a wider window of acceptable landing point to give rise to an effective bunker shot, which is getting out of the bunker. So I hope these core concepts help you. In future episodes, we'll be unpacking specialty shots where we want to hit it low and roll it out, or we want to hit it high and spin it, or buried lies or lies around the edge where the stance is awkward. So stay tuned for more.